Welcome back to another web development, web design video where I just go through some of the basics of modern website development and website design from the front end perspective. I've actually been thinking a lot about this idea that I call redaptive web design. So it's not responsive, it's actually responsive and it's adaptive at the same time. If you don't know what adaptive web design is, it was back when we would create a specific site for desktop, a specific site for um, mobile, and tablet didn't exist for the most part at that point. So you would have back when it was like mobile.whatever.com, and you would have a specific different site that was geared toward a mobile experience. And since then, we've moved on to responsive websites where you're creating one code base and essentially you're taking the same elements, you're just reconfiguring them or relaying them out based on the viewport width. Well, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do an adaptive sort of style, especially if you know exactly the dimensions or you know that it's all going to be on desktop or whatever. But since we don't know those things all the time, sometimes the desktop pattern gets overlaid in responsive design on everything. Or we sometimes see that the mobile pattern gets laid on top of the desktop design in responsive design, especially if you start from a responsive first sort of idea, or a mobile first sort of place. So you develop the mobile site first, and then you kind of gracefully stretch everything out, or make things bigger, or put them side by side, or whatever you do. And sometimes those same mobile patterns of interaction follow through all the way to the desktop, and it's not always the best idea, because sometimes the things that we need to do on mobile or that are more comfortable are not necessarily more comfortable or better looking or easier to interact with on the desktop. So they're definitely two different things when you're interacting with a mouse and or sometimes with a pen, like a Wacom pen. Um, and then on mobile, you're obviously interacting with your fingers, which is a different sort of experience. So I've just kind of put my head to thinking about, are there ways that we can combine those things where we can use the same code base? That's the beauty of responsive design, is that you have the same code base across every viewport width. So can we still use the same code base but give people a unique experience to the mobile device or to the tablet or to the desktop experience with the same underlying HTML code? And that's kind of a puzzle I've been looking at for the last year or so. And this this particular screencast is going to show you one element that I've considered, which is the FAQ. You see this all the time on websites or in help pages or whatever. And usually the things that you see with an FAQ are like this on mobile, and you see it kind of an accordion style. But if you were to pull this out to the desktop size, it's not that bad necessarily, but you have to do some things to make it intuitive that you need to click these. It's a pattern, it's an okay pattern, and would be okay. But when I'm on desktop, it's easier for me to be able to scroll, right? So getting up and down the page is a lot easier, and I have more real estate to give me more context for when I'm scrolling. So I can see more than if I have to scroll up and down on on a mobile device. Obviously, on a mobile device, this is going to be great. I can see all of the different FAQ questions kind of all at the same time, or at least I can see most of them at the same time. It's very clear. There are little bars here. You could put an arrow here just as an indication that this is, more information, or there's some little mobile patterns that you could do in order to make this even a little bit more um, quickly recognizable as a list of things that you can just click through. Um, so what I've done is I've got the same underlying code here. It's the same group of things over and over again. And then I have a little header, and then I've got an intersection that keeps it from can see it keeps it centered. The CSS isn't really anything amazing. It just gets rid of this. This border goes away at 600 pixels, and that's really it. That doesn't need to be there. And I have a hide class here, and I'm using that whenever I'm using that to hide these answer sections. So when I'm in the mobile mode and I click, the jQuery is just doing a show hide on the answers, and then it's showing the answer of the one that I clicked. So it's nothing like super high level there. In fact, you can see here that I run a function called FAQ, and that just holds all of our jQuery that we're running on the page right now. Check the viewport width. This runs the accordion section, so if the viewport width is less than or equal to 600, so if it's 600 or under, then we run the accordion script. So you can't see it because it has to be refreshed every time. But if I show you the refreshed version, now you see I'm clicking and there's nothing, right? So when we click the FAQ question, then we hide all the answers, and then we only show the answer of the one we clicked. Now this sets it removes the hide class when you get above 600 pixels, which is what we saw here. So all of these are now not hidden. Don't really need this. Oh, actually we do need that, because if we don't have that and someone should go for some reason to resize it and then, you know, and then refresh, which is probably not going to happen, but it would reset everything back to hidden. So we would add the class of hide. That's just kind of a paranoia thing. It's not really necessary, but in the event something like that should happen, that's going to catch it. And then finally we run that function when the page loads. So this you don't see it on the resize. You see it when the page loads. Now the pattern is like this. So this is the mobile, and then you would be able to use these, and it would be kind of a little touch menu like you're normally accustomed to seeing. Like I said, it wouldn't look bad out here like this, but whenever you have more space, then you're able to actually see all of the FAQ questions nicely laid out. I can scroll through them very easily with only a couple of scrolls of the mouse, and then I can see, you know, a few at a time, and I can also scan the answers for different things too. So what this pattern does is it allows me to use the same HTML, which is what I'm doing here. I'm not all I'm doing is showing and hiding these answers, but I'm not actually manipulating the DOM. I'm not manipulating the actual, I'm not adding or subtracting actual elements. So if you were to turn off jQuery, all of this would still be here. If you were to somehow turn off, you know, we could even go into the JavaScript and add these as hide elements. When the page loads, I want them to be hidden before we get to that point where the JavaScript runs, but there would be a little flash over here if you did that. So these will be hidden, and then if you wanted to implement as a backup some sort of CSS using the checkbox, what's it called? It's like the checkbox method, I guess. It's like a checkbox method, so it checks if something is checked, and then that's an interaction that you can do with CSS. So I've seen that on, you know, many websites. It was common a couple of years ago, or actually it was new a couple of years ago, and people were spreading it around. So if you wanted to do that as a failsafe, just in case JavaScript was not present on the system, then that would work too. I've used a detail and summary for FAQ before, so you could do that as well. But to me, the importance is the pattern. So this wouldn't be terrible on a mobile device. This would be like an iPhone. That's a lot of scrolling, and you can see that you're only getting to see a little bit at a time. You don't get a very good sense of what's on the page, how far you have to go, um, what's down there, and with just a few tweaks, you can show the user more options, just like you would on a mobile app. So this is one example that just kind of shows the essence of creating a mobile experience, and then on desktop creating a desktop experience, which is more conducive to the inputs that you have for each of those. So whether it's your finger for mobile, or and a smaller screen, or it's a larger screen with more screen space, and now you have a mouse, more than likely, or some sort of device. You have the keyboard, something that you can scroll through. Um, you can scroll through all the information a little bit easier. Um, is this semantic? Yes. Is it accessible? I would need some people who are better at accessibility than me to be able to show this, and how you could do that. Maybe with the checkbox hack for CSS, you could do it a little bit easier. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down in the descriptions below. I'd love to discuss it with you or talk it over. Is this viable? Is it important? Is it something that is necessary? Or is it just overthinking it? All right. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.